So what is up, guys? Suda the Savage back, and today I am here with NFL Week 11 predictions. Now, I know I usually do my thing where I say, oh, this guy, this number. Not this time, because last week I just really wanted to address, because last week was maybe was definitely my worst predictions video I had ever made. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of the teams I predicted. So out of the 13 games that were played, I guessed 3 of them correctly. Just 3. The only teams I got right were the Green Bay Packers, Seattle Seahawks, and Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens were a lock. Packers got pretty close. And the Seahawks, I was calling for the upset. But every other game, every upset just had to happen. Like the Chiefs losing to the Titans, Saints losing to the Falcons. That one really hurts. But you know what? We're just going to move past it. It's a new week, hopefully new predictions, and they better be better, because I swear to God, I'm just so disappointed with last week's performance, so things are going to be different. So, without further ado, we got to get this video started. So, where else will we start? Well, of course, we're going to be starting with our Thursday night football matchup this week between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. So, the Steelers came off a 17-12 victory over the Los Angeles Rams, and the Browns came off a 19-16 victory over the Buffalo Bills. So, let's start out. So, the Steelers, I cast you aside. I know your offense was going to be nowhere near as good as it was last year. And those stats, they have stayed the same. As in terms of yards per game, you guys ranked 28th. Which is not good, but where I've really sold you short was your defense. Because over the past couple of years, your defense was kind of sus. It was not good. But with Devin Bush and Minka Fitzpatrick, they have just bringing a whole new life to the Steelers. But starting off, Mason Rudolph last week, 242 yards, a touchdown, no picks. The rushing game, without James Conner, they were pretty much nothing. Same with the receiving game. But, of course, Jared Goff has been terrible this season. And finally, your defense was just able to pick them apart. You guys just completely dominated the Rams. Like, it was pretty close, but your defense was able to stand up to a very good offense in the Rams. I mean, you kept Cooper Kupp to 0 receptions. That's pretty good. I mean, that's amazing. And then you have the Browns. Finally, you won a game, but it's against the Bills. The Bills have, once again, a lot like the Steelers, a horrible offense, but they make up for it with their defense. Starting off, Baker Mayfield, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Nick Chubb ran for 116 yards, but he only had 5 receiving yards. Now, Nick Chubb isn't exactly the guy that's meant to be a receiver. When it comes to running backs getting receptions, he's one of the people that's on the lower end of the spectrum. But Kareem Hunt was back, only rushed for 30 yards, but he made up with it for 44 receiving yards. Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr. has had a hard time being kind of sick while filming this, so it's not good. I'm also filming this in my back room, and it's freezing in here, so next video I'm going to come in with a full cold. But anyways, Jarvis Landry been filling in for Odell Beckham Jr. with 9 receptions, 97 yards and a touchdown, as OBJ only had 5 receptions for 57 yards. But yeah, I mean, the one thing that I am suspect about is that you guys were stopped. You guys had at least 7 plays on the 1-yard line, and you didn't get in once. That's a problem. But so currently, Cleveland is favored to win this game. They're favored to win by about 3, but this time, I'm going to be picking the Steelers because their defense has just shocked me. So, you know what? Steelers will win this game. And now you have our very next matchup between the Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens. So last week, the Houston Texans, they were on their bye week. But before that, they won their last matchup, 26-3, in the London game against the Jaguars, proving that Gardner Minshew was just a fluke. And then you have the Baltimore Ravens last week, who just killed the Bengals, 49-13. So let's start off with the Texans. Texans, well, Deshaun Watson's your guy. Deshaun Watson there threw 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Carlos Hyde ran for 160 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, even though he's considered one of the top wideouts in the league, he's honestly had just kind of a down season. But that's because people know how he's way more threatening than he ever has been. He's more dangerous than ever now that he's got Deshaun Watson. In your game against London, Duke Johnson was the receiver. But of course, you guys have absolutely no defense. And sorry. And if you're going up against the Ravens have one of the best offenses in the league. They rank 2nd in yards per game. They may be 20th in passing yards, but they are 1st in rushing yards and yards per game. Lamar Jackson, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, but he followed that up with 65 rushing yards and a touchdown. One of my favorite things from the Ravens versus Bengals game was the Heisman backfield. Yeah, Lamar Jackson under center, and right in between them were Robert Griffin III and Mark Ingram. The Heisman backfield, that was pretty good. But in terms of receiving, Marquise Brown or Hollywood Brown, 4 receptions, 80 yards on a touchdown. Your defense, you stop the Bengals, you stop Ryan Finley. That's nothing impressive. But you guys do make this interesting. You guys are very interesting going in to the later parts of the season. So I got to pick a winner of this one. Currently, the Ravens are favored by 4. Now, hang on. I know the last time, I know I'm mentioning how much they are favored by, but that's really not going to change the predictions because it would just be way more complicated for me to keep up with keeping it over or under the spread. But the Ravens are favored, and I'm going to believe it. Ravens will win this game. And now you have our very next matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. The Atlanta Falcons last week ran into New Orleans and completely devastated the Saints, winning 26-9, even though the Saints were favored by 13.5 to win. And then the Panthers, they lost 24-16 against the Packers. So starting off, Falcons. You just made my life a living hell. At school, life was hell because everyone knew, I'm a Saints fan, everyone knew that as soon as they see me, they could just boast the hell out of it. And to be honest, it's about time. I've been coasting saying yeah, Saints got it, but I don't know, in the back of my head, I always knew that we shouldn't be getting too cocky, and my cockiness just got the better of me. And also got the better of the Saints. Matt Ryan, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. The rushing game wasn't, it was alright. Julio Jones, offense wasn't amazing, but the defense, you guys are one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Your secondary completely shot, and you shut down a high-powered New Orleans Saints. Very, very good job. I'm impressed with what you guys did, even though you're a division rival. And then you have the Panthers, they stormed into Lambeau Field, and they almost came out with a victory. Kyle Allen, 307 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Christian McCaffrey, once again, is the workhorse. 108 rushing yards, followed that up with 33 receiving yards. DJ Moore has been Kyle Allen's favorite target. That's not Christian McCaffrey. Greg Olsen, I said, the Panthers, they're literally all McCaffrey, but DJ Moore and Greg Olsen are starting to prove that point a little bit wrong, that they're also able to make some very good contributions to the team. Both of them combined for just about 200 receiving yards. So a good game played by them. But if there's one thing I really got a question last week, it's what the hell was your game? Because I'll get this pretty simply. So in the fourth quarter, you score a touchdown. You're down by 15, and you decide to go for 2. No, never mind. I was wrong. You were down by 8. And then you decide to go for 2. That's a pretty bold move. I don't think I would really have done it. I think just kick the extra point, be safe. Even though... And then, of course, you guys were stuffed on the 1-yard line at the final play of the game. McCaffrey just couldn't get in. So, honestly, I think it was a bad idea going for 2. Of course, it failed, and you lost. But anyways, if I gotta pick a winner for this one, the Panthers... I'm not sure. But the Falcons, they did shock the Saints. They shocked a much better team than the Saints. And you know what? I'm going to go upset special. Even though Carolina is favored to win by 5.5, I'm going to pick the upset and say the Atlanta Falcons. And now you are moving on to our very next match between the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys. So the Cowboys last week, they came off a 28-24 loss against the Minnesota Vikings. And then the Lions came off a 20-13 loss against the Chicago Bears. So let's get this started. Cowboys. Man, the Vikings played a very good game. You guys were just weren't there. So starting off, let's start out with Dak Prescott, 397 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Ezekiel Elliott only ran for 47 yards. He was just incredibly eaten alive. Amari Cooper and Randall Cobb combined for over 250 receiving yards, while Amari Cooper was doing all of his abilities of toe tap. Most of his big catches of the game were toe tappers, and, he did a very good job. Not going to lie. But, the defense, you guys are considered one of the better defensive teams in the league. Kirk Cousins threw 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook, never mind. He was the workhorse. So losing to Dalvin Cook is pretty tough, but I can see it happening. And then you have the Detroit Lions. You were without Matt Stafford last week, and it turns out having Jeff Driscoll as your quarterback was just the reason why, basically explains why Stafford was the most important part. As Driscoll threw 269 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He actually had the most rushing yards, 37, which was more than J.D. McKissick, who had 36 rushing yards. Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay were only limited combined to about 120 receiving yards. But Golladay has quietly been one of the best receivers this season. He's slowly developing into a top wideout, which is pretty good. And, of course, you guys fell to the Bears, but, Trubisky didn't have himself that great of a performance, but your offense was just lackluster. So if I got to pick a winner of this one, currently no one's favored to win. They don't have the odds yet. It's because we don't know if Stafford's back, but you know what? I am going to play it safe, and I'm just going to say the Dallas Cowboys, because Stafford or not, I still think the Cowboys will win. But even, Stafford might give them a fighting chance, but I'm not going to take any chances. Cowboys win. And then you have our very next match between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts. The Jaguars, they were on their bye week last week, and they came off a 26-3 loss against the Texans. And then the Colts came off a 16-12 loss against the Dolphins. I'll get to that later. But first, the Jaguars. Gardner Minshew was not good. He threw 309 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks. Leonard Fournette had a hard time getting the rushing game going because, well, to put it lightly, I mean, it's tough because even though the freaking Texans have one of the worst defenses in the league, but somehow they stopped you guys, which was interesting. But I think the more interesting part is that Nick Foles is making his return. Nick Foles is coming back. Will he be able to lead the team to the playoffs? Who knows? I mean, he's always able to pull out the magic BS. And the Colts. How did you lose to the Dolphins? How did you lose to the Dolphins? What was that? I know you were without Jacoby Brissett, but Brian Hoyer, 204 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 picks. 3 picks. Marlon Mack, 74 rushing yards. It was okay. Eric Ebron, the receivers were trash because Hoyer was trash. Adam Vinatieri is just missing all his kicks. People are saying he's cost all the losses that have come out of the Colts were all of them he had a part in. And at this point, probably just move on from Vinatieri. Like, he's getting older, but I don't think he's got anything left in him. But anyways, if I gotta pick a winner of this one, I really want to say the Colts. But since their last week performance against the Dolphins gave me second thoughts. And with the return of Nick Foles and what he's been able to pull off with his magical BS, I'm going to say Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win. And now you have our very next match between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. Starting off, the Bills came off a 19-16 loss against the Cleveland Browns. And then the Miami Dolphins came off a surprising 16-12 victory against the Colts. So starting off the Bills, last week against the Browns kind of proved to everyone that your offense is nothing special. Because, well, to put it lightly, Josh Allen isn't what he is. He's supposed to be, he's highly inaccurate. He's not the best quarterback, and it really showed against his performance against the Browns. So starting off, he threw 266 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Devin Singletary ran for 42 yards. Your rushing game, you didn't really try to rush the ball a lot. You just tried to make Allen pass it a lot more, which led to 77 receiving yards for John Brown, 74 for Cole Beasley. But other than that, nothing just really worked. Josh Allen, I know he's a great rusher, but he has to adjust to being a bit more of a passer. I think that's why they're making him throw more, but anyways. But it also didn't help that Steven Hauschka missed 2 field goals. Those 2 field goals, one of them would have tied it. The other one would have won it if he made both. But that was just a bad game in general. And then the Dolphins. I know you came off a shocking victory, but the Colts literally shot themselves in the foot. They just handed you a free victory. Enjoy your free victory, because you are absolutely ruining your tank. But Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 169 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. But the Colts, they also, you picked them off 3 times, which Hoyer was just terrible. Rushing wasn't really that much. Devontae Parker, 5 receptions, 69 yards. Other than that, no other receiver cracked over 35 yards. So, not that impressive of a game in general, as both the games these teams played last week were absolute dog crap. But if I gotta pick a winner for this one, gonna be the Bills. Gonna win. And now you have our very next match between the Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings. The Broncos, they were on their bye last week, like a lot of teams, like at least 6 of these teams on this video, but they came off a 24-19 victory over the Cleveland Browns. And then the Minnesota Vikings last week came off a 28-24 victory against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday night primetime, which isn't pretty good. So starting off with the Denver Broncos, here's what it was. Brandon Allen, his first start was okay. Like he only threw 20. He only had 20 passing attempts, and he had 193 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So okay debut. Not amazing, but not terrible at the same time. But Phillip Lindsay had 9 carries, 92 rushing yards, and a touchdown. Noah Fant had 1 big reception, and he had 3 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown. And then you had Cortland Sutton, who's also quietly been one of the better receivers this year. 5 receptions, 56 yards, and a touchdown. And then the Minnesota Vikings, beating the Cowboys on primetime. That's a pretty good statement victory. You got Kirk Cousins, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook, 97 rushing yards and a touchdown, but he also followed that up with 86 receiving yards. But Stephon Diggs was rather quiet, as he only had 49 receiving yards. Kyle Rudolph, 4 receptions, 14 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So honestly, you guys just played a very good game against the Cowboys. You held them to 24 points, which wasn't amazing, but that's tough. Your defense is one of the better units in the league, and you stopped the Cowboys, mainly stopping Zeke, which is very, very impressive. Got to pick a winner for this one? It's going to be the Vikings. And how much they favored by? Well, they are favored by 10.5. Pretty safe victory. I'm going to say Vikings win, but do they cover the spread? Yes. So Vikings win and cover the spread. And now you have our very next matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Saints came off a 26-9 loss against the Atlanta Falcons, and the Buccaneers came off a 30-27 victory over the Cardinals. Saints, I'm going to go on a huge rant, maybe a rage, maybe not. What the hell was that? What I can't even tell what that game was. You know what? One of the worst defenses in the league. You know what? We did not score a single freaking touchdown. Our rushing game, nothing. Drew Brees, he threw 287 yards. Good. Michael Thomas, 13 receptions, 152 yards. Very good. Other than that, we sucked. I mean, I get it. Their offense is good. I get that. That's the Falcons. But seriously, why do we have to succumb to so many penalties? Even when we were given golden opportunities, made them punt, and we maybe had about 6 minutes left. Oh, roughing the kicker. We pick off Matt Ryan. Great. And what do? Absolutely freaking nothing. You know what? You were favored by 13.5 to win. 13.5. And that just happened. It kind of gave us a bit of a wake-up call. Because you know what? And also that O-line. What the hell? Brees was sacked 6 times. Jesus Christ. And he isn't even mobile. We're actively trying to kill him. So anyways, never overlook your opponent, because they can maybe pull off a shocking upset. And that was the Saints. And that's enough about my rant. On to the Buccaneers. Last week they came off a victory over the Cardinals. Jameis Winston, 358 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. The rushing game was limited. I mean, even though Peyton Barber had 43 yards on a touchdown. Mike Evans, 4 receptions to 82 yards, no touchdowns. But anyways, both of you guys had horrible defenses, which is why the game was such a high-scoring game, even though Winston threw 2 picks, but you guys were just able to hold out the Cardinals. So I got to pick one for this one. Once again, I'm going to go with the Saints, but I swear to God, if you pull off another move like you did against the Falcons, I swear to God, I don't even know what to say about that. But anyways, Saints will win. And now you have our final 1 o'clock football matchup between the Washington Redskins and the New York Jets. This matchup I already know is going to suck. The Redskins last week, they were on their bye, but the last time they played, they came off a 24-9 loss against the Bills. And then the Jets, well, they won the mess in MetLife Stadium. They won the MetLife Stadium mess. Starting off, let's start over the Jets. Darnold threw 230 yards, a touchdown, no picks. Le'Veon Bell only had 34 rushing yards and a touchdown. Darnold had 25 rushing yards. Demaryius Thomas, 6 receptions, 84 yards, no touchdowns. Jamison Crowder has recently been pretty good. 5 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. But that defense is just terrible, as Daniel Jones just had fun making your life hell, even though you did limit Saquon to 1 rushing yard. I don't get how that happened. But anyways, then on to the Redskins. Dwayne Haskins has actually been confirmed that he will be starting for the rest of the season. So last game he threw 144 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. But Adrian Peterson recently he's been getting his stats up, had 108 yards. Paul Richardson and Terry McLaurin didn't even combine for 100 receiving yards. Horrible game, played against the Bills. Not much I can really say about you Redskins. So I've got to pick a winner for this one. Redskins are favored, but I'm going to go with a little bit of an upset. I'm going to say the Jets will win this game. And now you have our first 4 o'clock matchup between the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. Cardinals came off a 30-27 loss against the Buccaneers, and the 49ers, their perfect season was ruined after they lost the Seahawks 27-24 in overtime on an amazing Monday Night Football game. So let's start it off. Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, 324 yards. It was a very good performance he had. Threw 3 touchdowns, and he threw a pick. And that's it. Anyways, but he had fun, especially with Christian Kirk, as they just ravaged that Buccaneers defense, as Kirk had 6 receptions, 138 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Andy Isabella, 3 receptions, 78 yards. And Larry Fitzgerald, 8 receptions, 71 yards. But of course your team fell because your defense sucks. But if there's one other thing I gotta ask, what the hell was your last drive? I know it was 4th and 10, and you guys had a minute to go. You weren't even close to field goal range, and you decide to run the clock down to 30 seconds. IQ 1000. That was a horrible, horrible idea that you guys had. It was just a horrible final drive, and you fell short. Anyways, then the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo threw 248 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Tevin Coleman ran only for 40 yards. Deebo Samuel had 112 receiving yards. You guys did a very good job, especially even though you did not have George Kittle, which that's a tough task to deal with, but you almost did it. You almost beat the Seahawks. You know, you guys were on the cusp of losing, but your kicker, Chase McLaughlin, kicked a last-second field goal to send it to overtime. Then in overtime, Russell Wilson starts driving down the field. You pick him off. Great. You get into field goal range, and then Chase McLaughlin, his kick wasn't even close. It went inside the tunnel. It was that bad. But anyways, aside from that, very good game played. You guys just fell just short. So if I got to pick a winner for this one, 49ers will win this one. They are favored by 11. And I still think they're going to cover. 49ers win. And then you have our very next match between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Oakland Raiders. Not even going to be close. Bengals came off a 49-13 loss against the Baltimore Ravens, as they are 0-9. And then the Raiders came off a 26-24 victory over the Chargers. Starting out with the Bengals, you guys, now I'm saying, you're going 0-16. 0-16. As, last week wasn't a good week. Ryan Finley threw 167 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. In his debut, nothing special. I mean, Joe Mixon actually ran for 114 yards, but he had 30 carries, so you guys were focusing the game a little bit more on him. Aside from that, your big receiver was Tyler Boyd, 6 receptions and 62 yards. Other than that, no other receiver was getting over 4 receptions. Your defense was skinned alive by Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And now the Oakland Raiders, you guys have been shocking to me. You know, last week you had to face the Chargers, and it did help that Phillip Rivers was playing like absolute crap. But I'll look past that as Derek Carr, 218 yards, a touchdown, no picks. Josh Jacobs ran for 71 yards and a touchdown. Other than that, a good game played. In your possible final primetime game at Oakland, you guys come off with a victory. And it was a pretty good one, as you stop the Chargers offense. So, gotta pick a winner for this one. As always, I'm going to go with the favorite, even though sometimes I try to go for the upset. It's going to be the Oakland Raiders. And now you have our next matchup, which is actually a rematch of Super Bowl 52 between the New England Patriots and the Philadelphia Eagles. Patriots, both these teams were on their bye week last week. So the Patriots came off last time a 37-20 loss against the Ravens as they lost their very first game. And then the Eagles came off a 22-14 victory over the Bears in week 9. And so starting off, wow, Patriots, it was about time you got exposed. Tom Brady, 285 yards, a touchdown and a pick. James White ran for 38 yards and a touchdown. Julian Edelman, 10 receptions, 89 yards, and no touchdowns. But the new addition to Mohamed Sanu, 10 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. Good game played. Your defense, you fell apart to Lamar Jackson because no one really knows what Lamar Jackson is. Like, Lamar Jackson is like the perfect quarterback because no one can actually have the perfect game plan for him. You want to stop him on the rush? Well, he'll just throw. You want to stop him on the throw? He'll just run all over you. Even though his throwing isn't as good. But then you have the Philadelphia Eagles. This time, it's not going to be Nick Foles versus Brady, which is disappointing. Carson Wentz threw 239 yards, a touchdown, no picks. Jordan Howard ran for 82 yards and a touchdown. Zach Ertz finally had his coming out party. Had 9 receptions, 103 yards, and a touchdown. Finally made a return. You guys stopped the Bears. You guys kept them. Even though your defense sucks and their offense sucks, you kept them to, I think, less than 10 yards in the first half. Just kept making them go 3 and out. And if I got to pick a winner for this one, normally I would go with the Patriots, but like Super Bowl 52, I'm going to call the Eagles will pull off the upset and win this game. And now you have our Sunday night football matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Los Angeles Rams. Bears, they came off a 20-13 victory over the Detroit Lions. And then the Rams came off a 17-12 loss against the Steelers. So starting off with the Bears, well, you didn't have to play Matt Stafford, which basically took out all the challenge. Mitch Trubisky got to play target practice. 173 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Not that impressive. 173 yards is very lackluster because you guys, of course, focusing a little bit more on the rush. Even though David Montgomery only had 60 rushing yards. Allen Robinson, 6 receptions, 86 yards, no touchdowns. Taylor Gabriel, 4 receptions, 39 yards, and a touchdown. Your defense, still one of the better defensive teams in the league, which is very good. And your front 7, just as good. And then you have the LA Rams, Jared Goff. I did find this stat that this season, even though he has thrown for 11 touchdowns, he has had more turnovers than touchdowns, which is interceptions and fumbles. As last week he threw for 243 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Todd Gurley ran for 73 yards, which was pretty good. Robert Woods, 7 receptions, 95 yards. Gerald Everett, 8 receptions, 68 yards. But the biggest shocker was Cooper Kupp. 0 receptions. The Steelers just kept Cooper Kupp silent. The main cog of your offense was just silenced. So, honestly, both these teams have good defenses, but very bad offenses. The Rams have a pretty good offense, but their main guy used to be Todd Gurley, and their offense isn't as exciting since Gurley's workload has been cut down significantly. So, gotta pick a winner for this one. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. I think Trubisky, even though he's been struggling recently, the secondary for the Rams sucks. For the Rams is absolutely crap. And so I think the rushing game will pull it off as Goff will just get completely smothered by the Bears. So, of course, Bears win. And now we have our final matchup, which is Monday Night Football between the Kansas City Chiefs and the LA Chargers. And this game being played in Mexico City at Estadio Azteca. I don't know why the hell I said Estadio Azteca with that much of an accent. But it's kind of fun to say Estadio Azteca. I'll stop. But anyways, last time, Rams and Chiefs were actually supposed to play last season at Estadio Azteca. But of course, after a Shakira concert, the field conditions were so bad that the game actually got moved back to the United States. But hopefully that's not going to happen this time because one thing I do know is that the air is a little bit thinner up in Mexico City. So, the ball's going to travel a lot further and it's going to be a fun matchup. So starting off the Chiefs, how'd you lose to the Titans? I don't get how the Titans won, even though Mahomes pulled off all of his stunts. 446 yards, 3 touchdowns. Damian Williams ran for 77 yards. Tyreek Hill, 11 receptions, 175 yards, and a touchdown. A very good, 157 yards and a touchdown. Very good performance that was played But of course, the Titans pulled off a victory because your defense sucks and they made you turn the ball over way too many times. Their defense came to play as Mahomes did what he needed to do, but the rest of the team didn't. And then you have the Chargers. You lost the Raiders, but Rivers was terrible. He threw 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he threw 3 interceptions. And realistically, he should have thrown 4 or 5 interceptions. Melvin Gordon ran for 108 yards and a touchdown. Keenan Allen had 68 reception yards. The guys who got touchdowns were Melvin Gordon, Hunter Henry, and Austin Eckler. Eckler and Gordon do actually perform a nice little 1-2 punch, which I do like between those two. But if I gotta pick a winner for this one, it's gonna be the Chiefs. Plain and simple. And that is going to end my video for today. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you want to see the rest of my prediction videos, I will link all of those videos in the description below. Make sure to like this video, comment down below, subscribe to my channel. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Snapchat @StudentSavage. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Who Dat Nation is out.